Hi, I'm Jo Crawford, Research and Policy Advisor at International Women's Development Agency, IWDA.
And I'm Jo Brislane, Solomon Islands Program Manager at IWDA. We're the only Australian development agency entirely focused on women's rights and gender equality in Asia and the Pacific.
Research on gender is a key strategic priority for IWDA. In areas that have been historically underfunded, such as gender and development, there's often limited evidence to inform action.
And this is especially true in the Pacific, where we work.
So building the evidence base is the first step towards achieving change.
Gender inequality in Melanesia runs deep, and donors and governments are focusing on women's economic empowerment as a core strategy for addressing the problem. But this is also the region with the highest rates of violence against women in the world.
Initiatives to improve women's economic circumstances often ignore the widespread violence towards women in the region, and there is little or no research evidence from the Pacific about the nature of the relationship between money and safety for women. So it's possible that in some cases, well-intended economic empowerment initiatives could actually be increasing the risk of violence for the women who participate.
We want to understand whether and in what ways economic inclusion and empowerment initiatives affect women's experience of violence, and use this knowledge to advise on ways to minimise and mitigate the risk of violence while supporting women's livelihood security.
The Do No Harm research will explore this relationship in 3 countries across Melanesia. There's quite a bit of research, particularly in South Asia, on the impact of microfinance initiatives on women's lives and gender relations, and especially on their experience and risk of violence. But almost none has been conducted in the Pacific, and research from other regions has shown conflicting results.
So we need to know more, and we especially need to know what happens in the Pacific. The 3 countries we've chosen for the research have very poor rankings on global measures of gender equality and women's economic involvement. Violence against women is endemic in these countries and especially acute in Papua New Guinea.
For the Do No Harm research, we'll develop case studies that cover a range of economic inclusion and empowerment initiatives in formal and informal economies.
They will cover women in the community, including those involved in women's savings groups, like the ones I work with in Solomon Islands.
Women in the workforce, including in public service, mining, aid and return scholarship recipients.
And women in business, including entrepreneurs and market sellers.
The project is planned primarily as a qualitative study to capture the real experiences of women in their attempts to overcome economic disadvantage and navigate gender norms and relations. We'll also gather some descriptive statistics through online surveys and contextual data.
Participants will be recruited through working with local partners and through other key stakeholders. We'll mostly hear from women aged 18 and over, although some men will also be interviewed.
We'll work in partnership with a research institution with deep regional expertise, the State Society and Governance in Melanesia program at the Australian National University. Our primary research questions will be: what is the impact of economic empowerment initiatives on gender relations in these countries?
What lessons can we learn from existing initiatives?
Is there a relationship between women's economic empowerment and violence against women in Melanesia, as some have found elsewhere?
In contexts where violence against women is high, what considerations should organisations take into account when planning economic empowerment initiatives?
We plan for the Do No Harm research to influence both policy and practice. We'll create detailed case studies, discussion papers and guidance materials aimed at helping practitioners to approach women's empowerment in a more integrated way to mitigate risks of violence.
We hope the research will lead to more responsible initiatives that account for the reality of violence in women's lives in Melanesia.
With more knowledge and specific evidence-based guidance, organisations will be better equipped to fulfil their minimum ethical responsibilities to do no harm.